Hello everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Off the Draw for the 2014-15 NHL season. This is where I will be discussing anything relating to the NHL season, whether it's from trade rumors to prospects to trades that actually happen to contract negotiations to any other hot takes in the NHL. If it happens in hockey, I'll probably be talking about it at some point or another on this. And today we're going to start things off with the widely discussed topic of Ryan Johansson and RFA status. But first and foremost, let's get into the two contracts signed today because they were very unique situations. And that was with the Boston Bruins and Torrey Krug and Riley Smith. Now, I'll leave an article in the description below that'll outline this a little bit better. But pretty much because Torrey Krug and Riley Smith didn't play 10 games in their first season in the NHL, and they've played 3 years in the NHL, and they signed their contract when they were 20 years old, they actually weren't eligible for both offer sheets and salary arbitration, which pretty much left them with 4 options. 1, take the contract the Bruins gave them. 2, hope for a trade, but probably won't happen because they're both really good players and the Bruins want them on their team. 3, sign a contract in another league like the KHL. Or 4, sit out a full year. I mean, hey, if you're a 23, 24-year-old player, sitting out a full year probably isn't your best option, so they're not going to do that. Also, a trade probably isn't likely to happen because the Bruins want those players on their team. They're good players and they know they can retain them, so that's not going to happen. KHL, I mean, some players may jump for the money, but a lot of them want to win a Stanley Cup, so I mean, realistically, it leaves one option for about 99% of players, and that is going to be taking that contract that they're given, especially in this unique situation. So that's why they kind of got stuck with $1.4 million for 1 year each, and honestly, I think it's the first time I've ever heard of a player coming off a 20-goal season and 50 points in that season signing for $1.4 million, especially considering how much the salary cap has increased. Riley Smith is definitely worth a little bit more than $1.4 million. Same with Torrey Krug. But, I mean, they had to deal with the cards they were dealt. Hopefully they get paid next year because from a labor studies perspective, kind of sucks that they're only getting paid that little. Now, let's talk about the main RFAs, such as Ryan Johansson. This is a bit of an interesting topic for me because, again, from the labor studies perspective, there's a couple things that really bug me about it. First off is how taboo offer sheets are in the NHL. Now let's just think about this for a second. When's the last time you saw an offer sheet get given that was fairly serious? It was by Paul Holmgren to Shea Weber, and it was that massive deal. That was a deal that contract was absolutely phenomenal to see happen because Philly needed defense, and Shea Weber agreed to it. He got paid. He got what he deserved, and the holdout actually ended. Now, if you saw this with Ryan Johansson, we probably wouldn't be talking about this, and if offer sheets honestly weren't taboo, we wouldn't be talking about this. But because GMs will go to the extent of saying, oh, we don't offer sheets to other teams and other players because we don't want them in return to our players, which I kind of understand that, but it's kind of almost like they've created this monopoly for restricted free agents, which actually causes a problem with another thing with the bridge contracts. Now, because this is so taboo, and quite frankly, I can see why teams don't want their own players offer sheeted. But I mean, when you've got a player like Ryan Johansson out there, why wouldn't you send in an offer sheet of $5 million for 2 years? You're only giving up a first and a third round draft pick. You're obviously helping your team out. And if Columbus doesn't match, they don't match. Heck, I think if you offer him $6 million for 2 years, so $6 million a year for 2 years, you're giving up a first, a second, and a third round draft pick. And you're going to immensely help your team out. You're getting a player who put up 33 goals last year and 60 points. Albeit that he did have a high shooting percentage, I think it's very likely that he can come close to a season similar to that. So, I mean, any team in need of a first-line center or even a second-line center that's young would probably be worth at least inquiring about that and trying to sign him. Because would Columbus match at $6 million a year for 2 years? Who knows? But it ends this long-standing negotiations that we have going on right now. And again, it'd just be interesting to see, teams going for the win right now, as opposed to going for the win like in the long run. They're gonna lose out on their draft picks, but at the flip side, they're gonna get a player who will help them right now and is pretty good. So again, a bit of an awkward situation, but one that's definitely one that I want to see change eventually. I get why RFA status is there, and I like the salary or the draft pick compensation, and I think more teams honestly should go after some restricted free agents, especially one like Ryan Johansson. He's a special player who doesn't come around very often, and hey, even though he had one good year, what's to say he's not going to have another good year? He played good in junior, so he probably will play good again next year. At the very least, if you sign him for 2 years for that, you're not really going to lose out on too much for those 2 years. He's probably still going to put up 60 points a year, which, hey, making $5-6 million, second line center, not bad scenario at all. Now, another thing that really ticks me off with the whole RFA status is bridge contracts. Bridge contracts are something that in the NHL, they haven't actually adjusted with the inflation of the cap, with the cap growth. Now, since the bridge contracts are typically a $2 to $3 million deal for 2 years, so they get $3 million per year for 2 years, it's been that way since 2005, 2006. Keep in mind the salary cap has grown $30 million. Now, what does this mean? Well, a bridge contract that was signed for $3 million, so $6 million for 2 years, back in 2010-11 would be worth $3.5 million a year. That's an extra $1 million for that exact contract. And they haven't adjusted for the inflation of the cap, for the cap growth, which, if you're coming from an RFA perspective, is something that would kind of, bug me a little bit. Because, hey, I'm seeing my peers, my third line players getting an increase in salary because this cap has gone up. Meanwhile, this typical bridge contract has gone down. Now let's talk about Ryan Johansson for a little bit now that we got that out of the way. And honestly, I don't see him being worth the $7 million for 2 years that he's asking for. Yes, he put up great numbers last year, but he still is a bit of a risk factor. On the flip side, I think the offer Columbus tabled him, the $6 million for 2 years, so $3 million a year, is absolutely garbage. The guy's worth more than that. The guy put up 33 goals last year. If he was an unrestricted free agent, he'd be getting his $5 million minimum for a year. I mean, he's worth the risk, and for a team that needs that number one center, honestly, I think $5 million for 2 years, so $5 million a year for 2 years, it's a very good price for him. It's good for both sides. There's a lot less, there's less risk involved with it than signing a long-term contract, and it's more reward for both players and management, and both sides would kind of find that happy medium. It's not like Columbus doesn't have the cap space, which is kind of the most interesting part of this. It seems like they're just holding out to save on those extra $2 million, which, to be honest, they're probably not going to spend to get close to the cap. So, what are your guys' thoughts on restricted free agency in the NHL, and what do you think Ryan Johansson should get? I know a lot of people say he should just take a bridge contract, but in all honesty, the guy deserves to be paid more than a bridge contract. He put up 33 goals again last year, and even if he doesn't duplicate that, there's a very good chance he's going to put up at least 60 points next season, and putting him in that $5 million range is about where the 60-point getters are kind of at right now that signed recently. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, take it easy, and I'll catch you guys on the flop side.